Good afternoon. It's another great day to bring you more content around the NFL. Today, I want to get to my top 5 pass rushers and my top 5 tight ends in the NFL. So, are you ready to get your fix? Well, let's get started with my top 5 pass rushers in the NFL today, starting with the number 5 guy, Joey Bosa. Now, I got Joey Bosa at 5 because this guy, he's a freak. Okay? He's very consistent on the field and always makes play. I mean, in his 4 years in the NFL, he's able to get 10.5 sacks, 12.5 sacks, 5.5, and then 11.5 sacks. Now, in 2018, Joey was injured, and he was still able to get 5.5 sacks in 6 games, which is almost a sack per game, which is, pretty good in my opinion. Now, when he wasn't injured, or when he isn't injured, he's able to get about 60 to 70 tackles. He's a very productive pass rusher as well as stopping the run. So moving to my number 4 guy, Myles Garrett. In 3 seasons, Garrett has managed to get 7, 13.5, and finally 10 sacks. Now, those 10 sacks could have easily been more if he hadn't gotten suspended after hitting Mason Rudolph on the head with his own helmet in a scuffle. However, Myles Garrett is scary good and is someone that, should always be accounted for. One swim move or a bull rush, and he could blow by literally any lineman in the NFL to sack the quarterback. He doesn't get a lot of tackles on the edge, but he still accumulates a good amount of them. He's had 31, 44, and then 29 tackles in those 3 seasons, which means he's pretty good at stopping the run outside the line. With Myles Garrett getting reinstated by the NFL, I could definitely see him having one of, if not the best year of his career. Now on to my number 3 guy, Nick Bosa. I got Nick Bosa at 3 because this guy is an absolute freak of nature for the 49ers. Every time they went to battle, every team was talking about stopping Nick Bosa and possibly double teaming him. This guy was something that teams studied hours and hours on to make sure they knew his tendencies, made sure they knew what he was doing, what are his weaknesses, how can we stop this guy so we have a better chance to win this football game. Now, last season was his rookie year, where he had 9 sacks, 47 tackles, which is a very, very good year, and it's better than Myles Garrett's rookie year, which he only had 7 sacks and 31 tackles. And I also forgot to mention that Nick Bosa has an interception last year. Out of every person on this list that I got here, not one of them has had an interception. Not one of them. I'm pretty sure in their career. So, I think number 3 is a really good spot. He had a ridiculous rookie year. Being that he only had 1 season in the NFL, I can't put him any higher than number 3 because year 2 is the big can he really do this year for him. So we'll see where his production kind of goes in this upcoming season. Now let's get to my number 2 guy, Chandler Jones for the Arizona Cardinals. I got Jones at 2 for the simple fact that he's consistent and he's a force of nature on that defense. He usually is kept quiet. Okay, a lot of people don't talk about him. You really don't hear about him as much as you do with Khalil Mack or the Bosa brothers. But let's take a second to go over Chandler Jones' stats. Going back to the 2015 season, Jones has gotten 12.5, 11, 17, 13, and 19 sacks. The reason I started at 2015 was because last time he had under 10 sacks was 2014. 6 years ago, 7 years ago almost. So, you can understand why I say consistency. Now, this guy is an absolute tank, and he loves getting to the quarterback, and he does it at a ridiculous pace. He's even still able to get about 40 to 60 tackles a season, which means he's still an elite pass rusher. He's very good at stopping the run, and he's going to once again get 10-plus sacks and be a force of nature on that Arizona Cardinals defense. 19 sacks is crazy to think about, and he's been in the league for 8 years, going on his 9th, and he's still able to produce those kind of numbers. That's ridiculous. So finally, on to my number 1 pass rusher in the NFL, Danielle Hunter. I got Hunter at number 1 because the past 2 seasons where he's really flourished, he's had 14.5 sacks both years with 72 tackles and then 70 tackles. Now, out of all the pass rushers I mentioned, none of them have had back-to-back seasons with 70-plus tackles and still a high number of sacks. Danielle Hunter has done it in back-to-back seasons, and if you think he's not going to do it, just take a step back, okay? Look at the bigger picture. This guy became the youngest player in NFL history to reach 50 sacks, and he's only 25 years old. He's only 25 years old. If he keeps it up, he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Whether that's on the Vikings or whether that's on a different team, I don't know. but he's on pace to be possibly one of the best pass rushers ever. I mean, Danielle Hunter, he's not going to disappoint. He stays healthy, which is an even bigger plus. And now with the recent departure of Everson Griffin in free agency, Hunter's now the number one pass rusher on that Minnesota Vikings defense, which, I mean, he probably already really was the number one guy, but he still has some work to do, okay? And he's going to get it done. He's still going to produce more. I mean, I think he's going to have 14-plus sacks with 60-plus tackles and continue to prove that he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. Now, enough with the pass rushers. Let's go to my top 5 tight ends in the NFL. So at 5, I got Hunter Henry, who plays for Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I got Henry at 5 because in his 3 seasons in the NFL, he's been able to slowly increase his receiving yards. His first year, he had 478. Then his second year, he had 579. And then finally, last season, he had 652. So he's starting to become a bigger part of that Chargers offense, even when, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams don't get open. Hunter Henry usually is. Or they give it to Austin Eckler. They do a little dump pass. He stays healthy. He's able to get into the end zone. He doesn't get into the end zone at a high rate, but in his 3 seasons, he's had 8 touchdowns, then 4, and then 5 touchdowns. So you can tell, that he can be a red zone threat. And I also forgot to mention that he averages over 10 yards of reception over his career. So I feel like number 5 is a good fit. So moving to my number 4 guy, Austin Hooper, who is now a part of a powerhouse offense of the Cleveland Browns. I got Hooper at 4 because the past 2 seasons where he played for the Atlanta Falcons, he was a huge part in their offense. He accumulated 71 and then 75 receptions with 660 yards and then 787 yards. So that's pretty good numbers to put up in back-to-back seasons without really slowing down. Now, throughout his career, he averages about 10.5 yards per reception, which is a first down every time, and I think that's very crucial for a tight end to have. That's kind of why Hunter Henry was also at my number 5 spot. I put him also above Hunter Henry because he was just a bigger part of the offense. He was more a prominent figure in that Atlanta Falcons offense. However, though, this is going to be an interesting year for Hooper. Okay, he now has to compete for receptions against Odell Beckham, and then Jarvis Landry and David Njoku. So, we could see Hooper dip in production a bit. But for now, I got him at number 4, and we'll see kind of throughout the year if he goes up or down my list. Now it's time for my number 3 guy, Zach Ertz for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now I got Zach Ertz at 3 because he's unbelievably consistent, okay? From 2015 to 2017, he gets roughly about 820 to 840 receiving yards. And then last year, or 2018, he had 1,163 yards with 8 touchdowns. Okay, but then last year, he had 916 yards on 28 less receptions than 2018 with 8 touchdowns again. He's always towards the top of tight ends in receiving yards. And, the consistency is another reason I got him at number 3. The only thing that worries me about Zach Ertz is he needs to stay healthy. Okay, that's one of the big things. He got injured last year. I think he got injured the year before too a little bit with some back issues. But, if not, the Eagles have a stud backup. They have Dallas Goedert, who got 607 receiving yards last year with 5 touchdowns. So, either way, the Philadelphia Eagles are in good hands. Well, let's move over to my number 2 guy, George Kittle for the San Francisco 49ers. This guy has been an absolute force on the football field, and it won't surprise me if he continues to do so. 2 years ago, Kittle was able to get 1,377 yards and 88 receptions with 5 touchdowns. And I'm pretty sure that was first for all tight ends that year in receiving yards, which is really good being that was his second season in the NFL. So, then last season he added to his great career with 1,053 receiving yards on 85 receptions and once again 5 touchdowns. The way he plays is just incredible. He's able to run by defenders. He makes corners sometimes miss, and he's faster in some corners, which is kind of crazy. He has really good route running ability, so this guy's going to stay towards the top of tight ends because his production is just off the charts, and he's resembling another tight end that is playing today in the NFL who's actually my number 1 guy. And that number 1 guy just happens to be Travis Kelce. Now, I got Travis Kelce as my number 1 guy because in 4 straight seasons, he's had 1,000-plus receiving yards. Okay, and before that, he had 2 seasons with 860-plus yards. He's never dipped below 862 receiving yards in his entire career. Name another tight end to do that. Off the top of your head, I don't think you can. Okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous. He never gets hurt. He's always a huge part of the offense, even when they have a Tyreek Hill out there. I mean, the fact that defenses still can't stop him is another big reason I got him as my number 1 tight end in the NFL. Okay, in his career, he averages 12.8 yards a reception, which means that's only 7 to 8 catches. I think it was like 7.8 or 7.9 or something like that it'll take for him to get from one end zone to the other. Like, this guy's just a freak. Okay, and then in the Super Bowl, he had 6 receptions, 43 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, this guy's going to produce every single week on that football field, and he's having a Tony Gonzalez-type career up to this point. I mean, he's number 1 tight end for fantasy football, I'm pretty sure, in the last 3 seasons. I mean, he puts up ridiculous stats year in and year out, and I really don't think he's going to slow down anytime soon. Travis Kelce, number 1 tight end. So that's going to end our discussion today. Thanks for stopping by, and you just got your fix with the Wicks.